We're going out in 3, 2, 1.
Ooh.
Completely by accident. There was a limestone quarry here. They were blasting away at the rocks and eventually blasted open this entrance. They shut down after that, leaving this cave open to the world for 50 years. During that time, it was used in all kinds of ways. In one case, it was a dance hall. In another case, it was a hangout spot for college students. But in 1929, a man named Irwin Gilman bought the property. He's the one who installed these paths, rails, and lights, and he started giving tours. Now his descendants run that business to this day. We do have some rules. They're pretty simple though. Basically, no food or smoking, don't touch the rocks, stay with the guide, and don't break the rocks. Feel free to take pictures. Flash photography is fine, but the really important rule is rule 2. We have natural oils on our skin, so if we touch any of the cave formations, they will be permanently damaged. And they can take thousands of years to grow, so we try to keep them intact. Are there any questions?
No.
All right. Then when everyone's ready, you can take a pump of this hand sanitizer and follow me.
ไปค่ะ เราจะพาไปชมถ้ำนะคะ ตอนนี้เราอยู่ใต้ถ้ำ เริ่มเย็นแล้วนะคะ
All right, everyone, this is the first stop on our tour, and it's a good place to explain a bit about how this cave formed. See, originally, this cave was nothing more than a tiny little crack in the ground. The water seeped into that crack, started dissolving the rocks around it, and eventually that little tiny crack grew to form this entire cave. Now, this cave is about 250,000 years old. That may seem like a long time, and it is, but for a cave, this is just a baby. Some can even be millions of years old. Now on the wall here you can see some of our first cave formations, or at least one of the first we'll be seeing. It's this band of little brown bumps we call Botroids, or cave popcorn. So these form only underwater, which means where we're now standing, there used to be a pool of water. It sat very still for a very long time, and the minerals in it started building up on the wall. If you left dirty water in a bathtub for a few thousand years, you'd get the same results. Are there any questions? All right. Then when everyone's ready, we can go into our next room. We'll be going under that 5'1" ceiling and up some stairs. Name. This is an actual non-sectarian chapel. We got it dedicated as one in 1949. And we did that so that we could host weddings down here. We don't anymore, but the way it used to work is that the bride and groom would stand over there. And then if we had too many guests, overflow parking. The reason we chose this room specifically is because of this cave formation. We call this our frozen waterfall. And it's made of what we call flowstone. It forms as water flows down a surface. The water flows and leaves a sheet of minerals behind, and those sheets build up in layers and layers over time. To get a sense for how much time, just take a look at the ground. You'll notice this stuff on top of our brick floor. That's also flowstone. And this flowstone took 60 years to grow. So if it took 60 years to get only this tiny layer of this stuff, you can only imagine how long it took to grow all of this. Now, this flowstone, as well as most of our cave's formations, are made of a mineral called calcite. And normally calcite is this pure white color, but most of this calcite has been stained. These reddish-brown parts have been stained with iron oxide, which is basically rust. The more blue-gray parts have been stained with magnesium oxide. And these green parts are a bit different, because they're actually alive. This is algae. And algae is not something you'd really expect to find in a cave. You're not really supposed to find it in the cave either, but we have it down here, and that's pretty much our fault. We've been giving tours for a long time, and in that time, algae spores can sneak in on people's clothes. The wall's covered in water, it's got light shining on it, so the algae basically has everything it needs to survive. Now over here, we call this lumbago alley, which means back pain alley. And we say that because It's only about this high, but the first guy to explore it was my height. He had to crouch the whole way there, through that end, into the other side. It exits in the next room we'll be going to. But after traveling all that distance, he said his back hurt, and we named it after his pain. So this pool of water here is our cave's drip pool. Now this water comes from the surface. It starts out as rain and gets absorbed by the ground. Over time it seeps down through the dirt and rock, and after about 2 weeks of that, arrives in our cave. Now, after going through all that, you might expect it would get dirty, but actually the opposite is true. This water is extremely clean, but I wouldn't recommend you drink it. That's because I've been told it's also extremely mineral rich. So much so that I've been told it would taste like a handful of pennies. I've also been told there's a good chance it will electrocute you. So all around fun time. Now over there you can see the exit to Lumbago Alley. It goes straight into the drip pool, so that was even more fun for the guy who first explored it. And if you line up along this rail here and take a look up, you'll see something else. This is a cave chimney, also known as a phreatic tube. And this one goes up about 30 feet. If we had bats, this is probably where they'd live. But while it does go up pretty far, it doesn't reach the surface. That's because right now we are standing 100 feet underground. Are there any questions?
Can the cave get flooded?
Flooded?
Yep.
Not this. This water level almost never changes, but we do have another body of water. That one does flood. It actually did when the tropical storm hit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was actually giving a tour when it happened.
Oh.
So now I know what it feels like to walk through 50-degree water barefoot. Oh. Speaking of water, there's a puddle here, and also watch your head. Normally, there's water here all the time. The amount varies, but it would take an actual drought for this cave to dry up completely. That can happen and has happened.
You said it was a nightclub at one point? What part was big enough for that?
So that would actually be the Crystal Chapel. It was a dance club back in the 1800s.
Okay.
So
Before social distance.
Exactly.
also keep this in mind, the pads. We had to scoop out a ton of mud and clay to install these pads. So imagine people in their fancy 1800s clothes crawling through dirt and clay and mud to get down into a room underground where they could do square dancing. We really take air conditioning for granted.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's always 52 degrees in here, right?
Yep. Now this room is where the college students used to hang out. And we call it our breakdown room. That's because of these rocks here. See, these rocks used to be part of the ceiling. And as you can see, something changed. What happened is that thousands of years ago, water that used to fill this cave slowly ate away at what was supporting them. Eventually, they all came toppling down. But don't worry, they won't be going anywhere else. That's because flowstone has formed in and around them, and it's naturally cemented them in place. On these rocks, you can see some cave formations, like the famous stalactites and their equally famous counterpart, stalagmites. These form from dripping water. The water leaves minerals behind it, and the minerals build up over time. And if they keep growing, eventually they'll meet in the middle, forming what's known as a column. And for an example of a column, you can just take a look right here. Okay, maybe that's not the most impressive example. Didn't have very far to go. But if you want to see something a bit more impressive, you can take a look over here. So these minerals are actually not from our cave at all. We brought them in from a number of different mines all over the world. And we did that because they share a common property called fluorescence, which I can show you if you're all okay with me turning out the lights.
Mm-hmm.
All right, lights are going out in 3, 2, 1.
Ooh.
So what we're seeing here is that I'm shining an ultraviolet light onto these rocks. The light reacts with them, and it makes them emit light of their
ส
own.
วยอืม
And that's fluorescence. The reason we like to show it is because our cave formations are made of calcite. And calcite can do this too. So if I move the light here, you'll see these little ones also glow.
Oh, wow.
Are there any questions?
About the ventilation of the cave. So if you mentioned the chimney doesn't go up to the top and this one looks closed. So how does the ventilation work here?
Now that is a question I am surprised I don't get asked more often. But basically, rocks are not airtight. So we're not cut off from the outside air. Basically, it can move through the rocks. We still get circulation down here. It's the same way like water can seep through the rocks, air can do the same. It's not just because the path led this way. You see, this room, well, this room is right next to our cave's secret room. And it's a secret room because I can't take you there. Its entrance is completely underwater. The room itself is about 15 to 20 feet behind this wall. We call it the Queen's Room. And we didn't even know it existed until 1963. That year, there was a drought. So much so that even down here, all the water drained away. And what it revealed was the entrance to this room. People went in, and what they saw were formations so big and so beautiful, they felt it was fit for royalty. Unfortunately, they barely took any pictures. We got lucky though, because in 1981, there was another drought. This time when people went into the Queen's Room, they took a lot of pictures. And those are on display upstairs. So if you're interested, let me know, and I'll point them out after the tour.
Good question. If, let's say there's another huge drought again, right? Would people be allowed in those rooms, like on tour?
Not on tour. You'll see why once I show you where the entrance is. Because it's, even without the water, still pretty difficult to get to. So when everyone's ready, we can head down those stairs and then over a bridge. It's under about 7 feet of water, and it goes for 20 feet in this direction. After going through that passage, you will arrive in the Queen's Room, but you can see why we can't really go there today.
One more question. If you swim through that water and you get to the Queen's Room,
ใช่
you
น้ำ
feel
มัน
the water still?
Only about halfway.
So if you like scuba, theoretically.
I think someone tried that, but the passage was too narrow or too short. The scuba tank got
เออ มีน้ำด้วย
Now, the water here is actually not like our
หินยอก
river.
หินย้อย
For one thing, it won't electrocute you. But also, it's just generally safer to drink. Last time we tested it, this water was like natural spring water. It's also a lot deeper than it looks. Where I'm standing, this water is about 6 feet deep. It's about as deep as I am tall, although I'm actually only 5'11.5". It's a bit taller than that. Now, it doesn't look as deep as it is, and that's because water is a natural magnifying glass. When it's allowed to be this crystal clear and this perfectly smooth, this is just what it does. So last time there was a drought, we had to put a ladder over the side of this bridge, then walk under the bridge. So I think even if it wasn't under drought, we still probably wouldn't do that for tours.
Yeah.